Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Monday, June 5th, 2023, and this is episode 755 of Living Free in Tennessee. And it's a Monday, which is a rather long show. And usually I tell you what time we're doing it, but I just didn't know today because it was coffee day. So I just decided I'll record it live for our YouTube people. And if anybody shows up, you show up. If you do show up and you want to ask a question, I will take questions at the end of this, and just put the first few words in all caps so I know that you are intending your comment for me to see it. And then I will star it and answer it at the end. What are we talking about today? Well, today I'm going to talk about when to train for your weaknesses rather than outsource to them, because I just took the fighting pistol class at Tactical Response in Camden, and I was blown away by how much I was able to learn in just 2 days about properly handling my pistol and using it in self-defense should that situation ever come up. It was a great class. It was both a hands-on training class plus theoretical learning, which was a nice combination, I thought. Anyway, and I had put off taking that class for a long time. And it was all a mindset thing. And I thought, well, we should talk about this mindset thing. So we're going to dive into the advantages and disadvantages of training for your weaknesses or outsourcing to your weaknesses, because both approaches have a place in your life, so that we can just talk about making informed decisions for ourselves moving forward. Before we jump into that, though, I wanted to talk about our featured event, and it is June 24th at the Holler Homestead, 1 hour east of Nashville. We are doing our 6th annual chicken processing class. It's a great class that teaches you how to take a chicken from running around to serving as dinner on your table. And Chef Brett Corriere is helping me with this class this year. Usually I teach it solo, but he was available, and I thought it's actually kind of nice to have both our perspectives when we're processing poultry. We have a really good time, and what'll happen is you'll get here, there'll be coffee, it'll be warm out, and we'll talk about the theoretical side, food safety, the process we're about to go through. We'll address how to unalive a chicken. I have a specific way I like to do it, which is not necessarily the standard way that everybody says that they should do it, right? But it's the way that works best for me from a mental standpoint, because let's be honest, it can be hard to unalive anything. And if you've never done it before, this class is a great place for you to go, because we're very supportive about it. If you are unable to do that part of it, we'll do it for you. And then we walk through all the steps of processing a chicken. You go home with your chicken that you processed, along with a handbook on how to process chickens. There's a little blurb in there about how to cook pasture-raised chickens, and we will talk about how we cook our pasture-raised chickens as part of the class. You'll get lunch. It's only $95 for all of that, and that's June 24th. We'll start at about 8:30 in the morning, Lancaster, Tennessee, 1 hour east of Nashville. It is a Saturday. And tickets are at livingfreeintennessee.com, or of course, there is also a link in the show notes. If you're watching the YouTube video, I did throw it in the YouTube description if you want to grab your tickets for the poultry processing class, June 24th. I also want to thank our show sponsors today. The first one is a new one. You've heard from him. You have liked him. And he likes us enough to support this show. That's right. John Pagliano from the Wealthsteading Podcast is our first sponsor of the day. If you have not listened to John's podcast, go check out his podcast. If you put it in your podcast catcher, it's just the Wealthsteading Podcast, like homesteading, wealthsteading, get it? And it's a great sort of short form, 15 minutes or so podcast about the state of finances and the financial world around us. He talks about how he's investing his money. He shares lots of information and how he's making his decisions. And when I didn't know anything about investing, I started listening to the Wealthsteading Podcast just to gain financial literacy. Even though I wasn't ready to invest money yet, I thought it's 15 minutes of my time each time. And it's well worth it for me to listen to that and start becoming more literate, because I do intend to have money I can invest, right? And it'd be better to get to that benchmark in my life with some knowledge of how the whole financial world even works and what influences markets and all those things. John Peglion is a great podcaster, and we really appreciate his support. If you want to go straight to his website, it's investablewealth.com. And if you're looking for the podcast, it is on the navigation tab, also with his books that he's written, which is a whole another chapter we'll explore on a different day. Next up, I wanted to thank our second sponsor of today's show, Senior Chief Electric. Matt Nuzzo started Senior Chief Electric. And if you're looking for an awesome certified electrician in Middle Tennessee, he does excellent work. He has done most of the electrical wiring at the Holler Homestead, and we have done a lot since he arrived in Tennessee I'm not going to mention which state it was that he came here from. Anyway, he's been a supporter of us for a long time and is supporting the show. We really appreciate that. If you're interested in finding out more, there's a link in the show notes. Or you could also go to Facebook and type in Senior Chief Electric, and that will bring you to his Facebook page as well. Anyway, with that, I wanted to jump into our live stream schedule of the week. I have always spent Monday talking about how we can link up on the live streams for the week. And what used to be a once a week podcast, Living Free in Tennessee, has turned out to be 3 to 5 episodes a week, depending on who I'm interviewing and what the schedule is. And we even have added like some monthly episodes, like First Tuesday Coffee Chat with Jack Spirko, Spicy Sisters with Amy Dingman, and other things. They just come up. We do Self-Reliance Festival live streams on every other Thursday at 7. That's about to be every Thursday in about another month and a half. And people were like, when is all this stuff happening? So I thought, I say it on Monday, but it doesn't necessarily permeate. And I have now started doing a weekly post at livingfreeintennessee.com that just lists all of the live stream. That being said, Tuesday at 9:30, that's tomorrow, we have our monthly coffee talk with Jack Spirko and John Willis. So check that out. It'll be on the YouTube channel and on my Odyssey channel. It'll probably stream to Facebook if I can get that to work. Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central, I have a great interview with Jason Sparks and Jake Snyder from Kentucky Sustainable Living. They're doing their first event this year, like big event, the Kentucky Sustainable Living Festival. That's in the fall. We're going to talk about that, about what it's taken to build their community. It's going to be a great chat, especially if you're like, how do I build community? That's the one to come to, guys. Wednesday evening, I'm going to be on with Shawn Mills from hackmyhomestead.com. And we're going to talk about the solar build we did here in April, just the what's, the whys, the decisions we made, all of that, and how to build solar into your life in a way that makes financial sense and makes sense for the goals you have, which may not be the way you think it is. So, there's lots of ways to build solar into your life, and there are times when you may not want to. Thursday, 6:30 Central is the Self-Reliance Festival live stream. I'm hoping to get a few of the speakers on that. I don't have confirmations back on that yet, and I will be on an airplane during that time. So guess who's hosting it? Toolman Tim Cook will be on hosting that one at 6:30 Central. And then Friday, as always, 10:30 a.m., Homestead Happenings. Those are all going to be on my YouTube and my Odyssey and other places. And I have stopped linking directly to the episode in the post. I'm just linking to the channel, because what happens is we get a weird backlog of live streams if I schedule them in advance. So I just realized that looks really funny on the channel. With that, it's time for our first segment of today's show, Tales from the Prepper Pantry. This is where we talk about storing what you use and using what you store. It's a novel concept, and I have a confession to make. I'm a bad prepper. I'm really good at pantry management, but it broke down. My inventory management system works really well as long as everybody uses it. But somehow, sometime in the last 2 months, a box of coffee packing bags was taken out of my long-term storage into my short-term storage and put into the roasting shack. And it was my last box. And when that happens, I'm supposed to be told. Now, I don't know if I did it or somebody else did it. It could have been any of that. But I ran out of bags to pack coffee in last week. And some people got some half-pound bags in their orders last week for that reason. Ended up driving across the state to pick up bags to make sure I had them to be able to do orders. And sometimes we reap what we sow, right? That was all my fault. But that was like, sometimes we fail, guys. And I will admit to you when I do things wrong. I have a pending freezer audit up. And that is the one I usually do after my spring workshop. It's been really busy since the spring workshop because I went to the Exit and Build Land Summit and other stuff. And it's not done yet. And it has to be done before we do chicken processing on June 24th because I need one of those freezers empty just for chickens so that we can have a like totally sterile environment for people to put their chickens in before they go home. We are on parity right now with the produce coming out of the garden. So I don't need to buy produce, eating about 100% of what comes out of the garden, which is nice. But I like to start having a surplus because canning season is upon us. We are gearing up for canning season, but I don't have anything to can because we're just eating it fresh, which is all good. But I'm all in on the garden this year. And the reason I'm all in on the garden is a fire was lit under my tail by the farmer's market when I went there. And 2 of the 3 farmers who sell are not anymore. And one of them was sick. The third one was sick. And there was just nobody at the farmer's market except for baked goods. And I don't eat baked goods. So I went back this weekend just to see if the farmer's market was dead. It's not dead. There's still one farmer. He's a great guy. I actually bought some stuff from him just because I want to give him money so he keeps coming because it's actually kind of sad to watch this happen. Farmers are aging out. There's not another generation coming in to sell at the farmer's market, which means that local food link is breaking. And that's problematic. So I'm hoping that that situation fixes itself, but it hasn't. And I am not so hoping it will fix itself that I'm willing to go to the farmer's market to sell produce. So that's not my primary focus in life. We are adding a window unit to the Prepper Pantry, which is where I also store the freeze dryer because it is now 90 degrees outside on the regular during the day. And I can't run the freeze dryer when it's that hot and have it be successful. So I was talking to Tactical. I'm like, I would like to be able to use the freeze dryer for a couple of things this summer, which means it'll be like a huge energy. It's like I have to turn the AC on to run the thing. And I will put the vacuum pump outside probably if it's not too hot. So all that heat goes outside. But yeah, it's been a bit of an interesting adventure on the freeze dryer. And as far as getting ready for canning season, it just means we're getting the supplies rotated. The canning kitchen's all set up now outside so I can can outside. And now I just need something to be ripe for me to put in a jar. And usually beets are the first thing I get. So we'll see. I did get a tomato last week at the farmer's market. So that was cool. Also, a reminder in the live stream, I see some of you are commenting. If you have a question for me as we go, put the first couple words in all caps. I'll star it. I will not answer it till the end because while I'm on my roll, I want to be on my roll. Next segment is the weekly shopping report from Joe over at our MeWe group. And Joe and I have not been linking up schedule-wise, but I grabbed one from 8 days ago, and he said we only made 2 stops this weekend, skipping Home Depot. Not to worry, the online price of a 2x4x8 is $3.35. Do you guys remember when that was over $12 like a year ago? Maybe it's a year and a half now. The tag's been missing anyway, so I've had to look it up online. While I need to reorganize some tools, I do not need to buy anymore. And this is a good point. Sometimes if you don't go shopping, you don't buy the things. That's one way to control your spending. Dollar Tree was the usual first stop. We almost always find some small useful things there. The food coolers in the back were well stocked. Some of the selections have changed in the drink coolers, but they're pretty full. And we were behind some people in line buying a lot of groceries, and that's certainly still possible. Some things will be cheaper elsewhere, so be careful, especially on canned vegetables. Aldi was our final stop. Eggs have continued to drop in price to $1.62 a dozen. I remember when they were 89 cents a dozen, and I was selling eggs at the farmer's market for, I think I was at that point charging $3 a dozen. And people were flipping out. at $3 a dozen. I won't even let them leave the farm here for $5 a dozen now. And they're like, they're 89 cents at Aldi's. And I'm like, then buy those because they're not as good. Yeah, anyway. Since I have read of impending shortages of coffee, we grabbed extra for both normal and joyless coffee. I'm going to use joyless on my next decaf order because of this show. She will drink one or other depending on the time of day. Now that the weather is warm, I've not been drinking coffee. Who are these people who don't drink coffee? I don't even know. We found everything else we wanted, including canned cat food, and a gallon of untainted gasoline remains at $3.99 a gallon, which is about what I paid also for ethanol free. Ethanol fuel is considerably cheaper. Next up, we have the frugality tip from Margot this week. This is my last frugality tip. So if there is not one next week, this segment will not be here. Y'all, if you have a frugality tip you want to share with the network, email it to Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com or go to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on contact, fill out the form, and it comes to me. Here's a little tip on your journey to self-reliance from Margot. Figure out how to make things that you want. At the Living Free in Tennessee workshop, I saw a really cool leather holder for a multi-tool, a pen, and a flashlight. And it was Carrie who had it, I think. So he took it off and I traced it on a piece of paper to get the general idea of size. While I don't have a pattern done yet, I made one. It's pretty darn cool if I do say so myself. Also, I don't have a large piece of leather laying around, but I did have an old purse, so I just cut that up and repurposed it. This cost me a conversation with a man that had something I really liked and some time. You can do whatever you put your mind to. You just have to try. And sometimes, as is the case in this case, try again. This was my third attempt. Go on and make something. And guys, if you want to see what Margot's third attempt looks like, I have put that photograph in the show notes at livingfreeintennessee.com. It's episode 755. So I couldn't figure out how to show it. Oh, I probably could show it on YouTube. Hold on. Let me see. Those of you who want to see, do you guys want to see it on YouTube? That's right. I like to sing songs when I'm doing things. But yeah, I can share the screen and you can see what it looks like. Anyway, our next segment is Operation Independence. This is where we talk about all of the really cool things that we are saving money on or spending money on or earning money from around the whole. This segment came up to be because I needed to make more money. By the way, the picture for the live stream is up there. I think it's very cool. Anyway, this happened because I needed to change how I made money because my job was not cutting it for me. And meaning that I was too dependent on my job and it was not working out. And I actually worked for myself at that time as the founder of a nonprofit, but that's a whole different story. Anyway, I ended up starting a game called Operation Independence where we would do a thing, calculate how much money we didn't spend, add 30% or 40% because we also didn't have to earn the money, pay the taxes, have less money, and then use that to pay. And that was our independence fund. Anyway, so we talk a lot about finances on this part. And I think it's good when you're sharing your story of how you have gone from following your passion to turning your passion into your full-time job, that people understand the financial side of it. Because when I first started doing this, I was doing a lot of things all at one time and I was barely making it. And part of why I was making it is I had food stored, so I didn't have to buy food. And part of why I was making it was I have a good support network. And like by making it, guys, I have paid myself $1,500 a month for 2 years now, salary. Yeah, full stop. Now, I have changed the equation on how expenses are paid for a lot of things that other people who just make W-2 income would pay out of their, they pay taxes and then they pay for those expenses. I have a lot of business expenses that are covered through Nicole Sauce Industries, right? And so with $1,500 a month, I also still have to earn additional to cover all of the things that I need to cover. But there was a point where I was living on $1,200 a month. And that was some skinny times. So it is possible. It's just not super fun. And it's just, yeah. Somebody says, nice to be paying yourself finally. I'm like, yeah, I'm actually kind of stoked that I can pay myself consistently. And the way my business is structured, I can pay myself and then I can issue additional bonuses. And I do that from time to time when I know that we need to cover, things like I'm going to be buying about $700 worth of propane in about a month because I pre-buy my propane for the year, for example. Anyway, we are re-envisioning the big picture plan for my house here in the Holler Homestead. We have been, like, I kind of knew what I wanted, and I've always wanted to add a third bedroom / office so that my podcasting studio is not in my bedroom, because my guest room gets used by my mom a lot. And I used to have my podcast studio in there, but then I'm like, I'm in my mom's bedroom when she's in town and I need to do work and blah, blah, blah. So I finally just moved it in here so I could do what I need to do. But you can see I'm like crammed into this corner right now. And I would like to have a little bit more space, have all my music and everything in one place. So I've been wanting to add a room, but not wanting enough to go into debt. So I've been waiting for the right time. But we've always been keeping the big picture of that third room in mind as we do any upgrades on the house. So we don't remodel the kitchen and then it's in the way of the add-on and then I got to take the kitchen out. Like, that would be really stupid. So we did figure out this year, I was originally going to just go up a story. I figured out I can just go out a story, out a room's worth, and get that done. But as I've been going down this sort of adventure of the spa pool, the swim spa, I think the big picture is going to involve adding also like an office that has a sunroom, and in the sunroom is a swim spa, because I am a passionate person about swimming and I drive hours once a week or so to swim when I get that done. And like the last for months, I haven't been in a pool unless I was on, except for that swim spa when I was out of town. And this weekend I went and tested a swim spa. It was really fun. So it's an expensive item, but I think if I plan for it, I can make it happen. And I think you've heard me talk about how can I monetize it. I've started looking into it, and you can get floor models at about half the price of retail. And then I've also been looking at the used market. I've been looking at, do I then provide some sort of swim spa experience on Airbnb? Lots of different ideas have been floating around. But either way, I'm working it from a physical standpoint into like the measurements of how the house add-in goes and the electrical plan, because it needs 30 amps, just to make sure that every decision I make here supports that long-term goal. And then if I eventually don't do it, it's not the end of the world. Then I have a big sunroom without a swim spa in it, for example, which I would have wanted to have anyway, because I want the inside to feel like it's outside, and I want somewhere where I can put a lot of plants. It's all complementary. So that's happening. And why this is under Operation Independence is thinking about that now, even though I haven't figured out how it's going to happen, makes it so decisions I make on this house as it gets worked on don't cost me double money, so that's a long-term view of the finances on that. And then we have been selling lamb, and those dollars are used to pay for sheep. Well, the biggest expense we've had this year from a consumable standpoint on the sheep is actually the flea and tick medication for the livestock guardian dogs. So we were able to use money we got from the meat to pay for the dogs. That doesn't mean we have money from it, and we still have some left. It's in an envelope that is marked sheep. But that was actually kind of nice because that didn't have to come out of pocket. Anyway, with that, it's time for the main topic of today's show. And now for something completely different. Remember that? Yeah, something completely different. Train to your weaknesses. So I'm wearing my my Fortress Canine shirt because something that's outside of my comfort zone I haven't done yet was get in the bite suit. And I was going to do it at my spring workshop. And then Wendy Riles is like, maybe you shouldn't do that because we need you not to be hurt at your workshop. And I was like, I can get hurt. And I thought the point of a bite suit was you don't get hurt. So I chickened out. But I'd still like to do that at some point. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm wearing it because it's a mindset thing sometimes that keeps us from training to our weaknesses. So, you know how they say, like, hire to your weaknesses? If you own a company, hire to your weaknesses. I think that's great advice. And I always tried to do that. I found it very hard to screen people to make sure they were good at what I was weakest at, because I was weak at it and I couldn't necessarily, it was hard for me to see quality sometimes in that. But it's great advice, but it doesn't cover when you should address a weakness that you have through learning to be stronger in that area. And I've become keenly aware of my weaknesses as I have started my own challenge, to set the 75 hard challenge that I've been just gave myself. And I know a bunch of you have started your own LTN challenges. I've got, people giving up to, some people are doing 75 hard with me. Some people are doing just a challenge to fix one thing, which is really smart. So I've been watching somebody change their eating habits completely, and that's all that they're not doing all the other 75 hard stuff. It's just like every day without fail for 75 days, I'm going to eat on plan. And that's big. That's big. Because the funny thing is, I used to think just do it for a month, but I'm like, the brilliance of 75 hard is by the time you've gone 2.5 months on something, there's no way you haven't come across a birthday party with temptation, an out of town trip, or like you end up doing, you might have a day where you feel funky, like all of that's really cool. Well, as I have gotten into 75 hard, I have had a lot of time for deep thinking and self-reflection, because I do 2 45-minute workouts a day. And the first one is in the morning with my dogs, and I do not look at my phone. I bring my phone in case there's an emergency, but I do not look at my phone or listen to anything during that time. So I'm just alone in nature. And that means that my brain just gets to go where it goes. Like, the cool thing is I'm seeing a lot more in the forest around me as part of this, but I'm also doing a lot of deep thinking and self-reflection and analysis. And I realized by day 3 of 75 hard that I have been using an avoidant behavior regarding my own personal safety. So I have made it this far in life without being physically attacked because I'm loud. That's right. Twice in my life, I've been in a situation where somebody's going to attack me. One time was quite serious. They had a knife, and I was alone and didn't know what to do to defend myself, really. And my loud mouth got me out of it, because I can say words with determination. And I just happened to say the right words in the right way, and the attack stopped. And, having just taken tactical responses fighting pistol class, which, if you're interested in that, the links are in the show notes. If you just like straight to that class, if you want to see it. One of the things they go over in the class is about mindset. And one of the things is an attacker is looking for a victim. And when you act like a victim, you're more likely to get attacked. And so I was just lucky to have come across people who were not so determined to kill me and rape me, that when I did not display an attitude of a victim, like freak out, run away, blah, 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 and I just went at them verbally, they decided I might be harder to deal with than they wanted to, and they walked away. Now, the last time I've been in a situation like that was before I moved to Tennessee. So probably 16 or 17 years ago. And that, like, the best reaction I could have done to that, just from a building the life I should have and being a secure person, was learn how to defend myself better. And I've taken some self-defense classes and other things, and I have learned how to handle a gun better, but I've never been terribly comfortable with firearms. And I was avoiding addressing that issue. And then we built this range here, and I was started working on being more accurate with my shooting. And I'm 3 days in on 75 hard, and I'm like, "It's time. I'm never gonna take this class if I keep putting it off, and there's always a reason not to take the class." And the moment that led to the moment was at Self-Reliance Festival in March. I was talking to Ed Hubble about this issue, my gun issue, and I told him that I think if I was attacked, I would not be successful in defending myself with a firearm. And he said, "Then you won't be." That's all I said. And I didn't really say anything else. At that moment, I thought, "He's right." I might have told him he's right. And I walked away and I thought, I can continue to make excuses or I can change my behavior. And the only way I get over this mindset issue is by changing my behavior. And so there was another 30 days of I can't take this class because there's not time in my schedule. And then I remembered what I tell you guys all the time is when you're telling yourself, I can't, ask yourself, how can I? And I finally started 75 hard, had time to reflect, and I was like, I have an idea. Why don't I look at the calendar, choose a weekend that works for me to be gone for 2 days, and just go take the darn class? Doesn't have to be while I'm already in Camden, because it was always like, well, I'll go to Self-Reliance Festival and then I'll take Fighting Pistol. I'm not taking Fighting Pistol after working that event. I'm so tired after that. There's no way. No, not happening. And so I did. And I inadvertently chose Memorial Day weekend, which I didn't realize it was Memorial Day weekend when I chose it. But making that decision started a whole cascade of good things happening from a mindset standpoint. I got more confident. Jenny's saying if I put it in my calendar, it has to happen. I committed to people I was taking the class. I got the ammunition and all of that stuff and got the Airbnb, so I had somewhere to stay. And I knew going into tactical response that what was going to happen was a mindset change. As long as I went in there with a novice's mind, meaning I'm open to learning things maybe differently than I've been taught them before, there would be an amplification effect, because not only would I learn better how to handle my pistol, it would impact other things. And figuring out how to actually schedule a thing I think I want to do that I wasn't scheduling made me think about other things I wanted to schedule and figure out how to make those happen too. So it already had an amplification effect before I even walked in. And then I took the class. And one of my big hesitations, guys, about taking that class is I wasn't sure if I was physically capable of taking that class, because I had heard some of the drills that other people have gone through, but they were in the advanced class. And I had already taken immediate action medical and physically had a hard time with that class. And I thought Fighting Pistol was going to be physically harder, and it was not. So the first thing I learned by taking the class is that it wasn't as physically hard on my body as I thought it would be. Now, there are two sides to this. Had I taken it a year ago, I wouldn't have been 30 days in or 3 weeks in on 75 hard. So I am stronger now because I started 75 hard. I realized it the other day because I got on the rower, started rowing, and wasn't getting winded. And I was like, oh, I guess I need to dial up the strength, or you can make it harder to pull against, basically. Even when I was doing CrossFit, I was not as high as I am now on the rower. So I think it's because I did Pilates too. I think the Pilates is building my core here, which is because it's all core when you're rowing as well. So core is very important. So having done that, some of the things that we did during Fighting Pistol were easier for me because I had already started out this workout. That being said, I could have gone in there as a 97-year-old woman who could barely hold her gun up, and they would have been able to scale the class to me if they needed to, right? Maybe that's not the best example, but you know what I mean. And the funny thing about fighting pistol not being as physically demanding as I thought it was going to be is it's sort of like unloading your dishwasher, right? Like, how long does it take to unload the dishwasher? It takes me 90 seconds. 2 minutes if it's like got some weird stuff in it that have to be put away funny, but like it takes me 90 seconds. And the reason I know that is there was a time when I used to use the microwave to heat up water or to, heat up a bowl of soup. A bowl of soup heats in my microwave in 3 minutes. And I would like, oh, while I'm heating up the bowl of soup, I'll start unloading the dishwasher. And I know I won't finish it. I totally finish it in 96 seconds every time. And I could spend all day long not unloading the dishwasher because I don't have time. And it's 90 seconds. Like, it's that same thing, right? Only it was, I'm afraid this class is going to be too physically demanding, so I'm not going to take it. So I was really glad to find that out. And I am harping on that because we are doing Girl Gun Weekend on Labor Day. And if you want to do Girl Gun Weekend with me, you need to email me, Nicole@livingfreeintennessee.com. We're going to get an Airbnb. We're going to do food. Fighting pistol is $600. You need to also bring 1,000 rounds of ammunition or ship them in advance, which you can ship them to me and I'll bring them for you. And you can rent a gun from them for $25 a day, or you can bring your own. It just depends. So I just like people who think they can't physically do it. You can. I watched a whole range of people with different physical capacities do that and learn how to use a gun to defend themselves. And then, true to Tactical Response's MO, the class tore down way more mental barriers than I even knew I had. And that's very good for me. So like I went into the class saying my goal is to figure out what I want to carry because the gun I carry, I'm not comfortable carrying. And I didn't take the class with that gun. I took the class with a different gun with a lower caliber bullet just because they recommended that because you fire so many times that your wrists can get tired. I have like sort of a little bit of carpal tunnel and I was like, okay, I'll just borrow a different gun and take it with that one. And I'm glad I did for a couple reasons, but not the reason you're thinking, not the wrist reason. I borrowed a gun and it had issues. The gun didn't have issues. The magazines had issues. And I had every weird jam you could possibly have. And I had to deal with it every single time. And I got really good at dealing with that, right? And there was a point where somebody let me use their magazine so I could actually go through an exercise without having a complete catastrophe in the middle of the exercise. So I'm glad I did that. And the other thing is I learned to be proficient on a different gun than the one I carry every day. And as a result of that, and how comfortable I got with that gun, and I got to fire other people's guns that were different kinds of guns, because everybody heard I wanted to try. I'm like, I want to try other guns, and everybody's like, try my gun, right? Because then I can, I can fire it and see if I like that one. And I see somebody saying that's the reason I like my revolver. I like my revolver too. My revolver is just too big to carry reasonably. Without it being obvious that I'm carrying a revolver, unless I like wear marshmallow padding or something around my waist. So I came home much more proficient with just about any kind of gun by getting super comfortable with not my gun. And now when I carry my gun, it carries really well. And I might end up just keeping the gun I'm carrying. The only thing now is that I feel like the grip is bigger than I want it to be. So I may get a different gun with the capacity to change the grip and have it be a little bit smaller. But I'm actually now comfortable, like really comfortable with my gun. So it like that whole, it's like I started with this goal of what gun do I want? And I ended up comfortable enough with my gun that I'm now totally not in a hurry to change guns. So that's just typical of Tactical Response. They're like, oh yeah, we'll help you with that. And behind their hands, they're like, she's going to end up carrying the same gun she always carried, right? They see it coming, but they don't tell you. They let you come to your own conclusions on that one. And I really think the key to success at Tactical Response or any of these, when you're training to your weakness, is come with the novice's heart and mind. I learned a lot of different things about firing a gun. I learned some things wrong. I learned some things different that weren't wrong. But when I went into that class, I didn't try to be super proficient, like I'm better at this than everybody else. I didn't try to tell the instructors what to do. When I had a question, I asked a question, even if I thought it would make me look stupid. And there was one point where I'm pretty sure I looked pretty stupid because I did not understand a word and he had to explain it to me 5 times. Um, and I don't care. That it doesn't matter. Like at that point, my goal was get better, be better and more secure in my own situation because up until this year, my primary line of defense has been other people if something really bad happened. Like, I would do my best to defend myself, but at the end of the day, it was other people around me who were more proficient than I am, and they are still more proficient than I am, but I am now proficient enough that, let's just say I'm a better partner in the situation if we ever had a big problem here, and when I'm out and about there's a good chance that I could successfully defend myself. I can do it now. And I don't know that I could have like I didn't think I could before. Now I think I can, I guess is the best way to say it. And so as a result of that, I carry my firearm because I didn't always. I was like, I'm not going to do it anyway, so why carry it, right? Now I do. Now it's there. So I think all of that were really good growth changes for me. And that's why I wanted to talk about training to your weaknesses today, because your weakness may be something else. It may be physical conditioning. It may be sticking to the right meal plan. It may be growing the food in your garden. It may be staying disciplined about money. Like, I don't know what your weakness is, but we all have them, and we all have different sort of barriers to that. So when we talk about the when and why of training to your weaknesses, I think the first question you need to answer is, what am I good at and what am I bad at? Right? When you have an area where you lack skills, that's a potential for knowing that you have a weakness that you're going to want to train to. And when you train to your weaknesses, it's a humbling experience. And it's not always bad for us to be humbled, right? But you don't want to just train to every weakness you have, right? So you want to know the impact, like what impact on my life does this weakness have? Now, I'm going to tell you about a weakness I had that was also mental, and it was a fear. I had a huge fear of bees. And if a bee flew near my head, I would run around waving my arms, screaming, ah, running away from the bee. At that time, I was not allergic to bees. I am now. And one day I was like, well, this is stupid. And, people think I'm actually in trouble and it's just a bee. Like, it's going to sting me and hurt. It's not even that big a deal. And so I became a beekeeper to address that weakness and became a lot more confident around bees, although I never loved being exposed to thousands of honeybees, right? 20s of thousands of honeybees. And eventually I did develop an allergy and the bees are gone. But now when a bee flies near my head, I just hold still because like a honeybee, it's not in its nature to fly up to your forehead and just sting you unless you do that, like squish it with your hand or something. And a wasp might just up and sting you, but if I get stung by a wasp, it's probably not an anaphylactic experience. It's the honeybees I'm allergic to. And even that, I'm not even sure I'm all that allergic since I haven't been stung in a while, but I don't go out of my way to get stung. So the impact of being scared of bees was that I could have had a situation where somebody jumped in to intervene on something they did not need to do and they get hurt, right? That would have been terrible. So when you have a weakness, just look at what is the impact. And if the impact is, it's not really a big impact at all, maybe that's not one you need to deal with, right? When you recognize your strength, likewise, it's really great to see, like, where do I excel? And a lot of people are hesitant to admit they're good at something. Admitting you're good at something is not egotistical. It's not bragging unless you go out and put it up in everybody's faces all the time. And when you're able to identify your strengths and be honest with yourself about what you're good at, you can make decisions that make your life awesome. And I think about some of the things like my secret sauce, right? I'm a really good facilitator. I have naturally been a good facilitator for a long time because I read a room pretty well, which is weird. Sometimes I read individual people completely wrong, but I read a room really well. And that means I can pull things out of a room that other people can't find. And in a situation where you're developing something collaboratively together, that is one of my strengths. If I was not willing to admit that, I would have not invested time making myself even better at facilitating through doing it with mentors and through training, right? So that I could be powerfully awesome at facilitating, which I am. But I don't run around saying I'm powerfully awesome at facilitating and you're terrible at it. Like I don't go out and like rub it in people's faces. I just look for situations that I can create where my facilitation capacity can be used. Likewise, I'm a good teacher. It's why I do this podcast, right? So I think when you find areas at which you excel and have a passion, you will succeed naturally in those areas, and you can use that to address weaknesses that you need to improve. I think in part because I'm naturally a good facilitator, my self-defense weakness was something where I'm like, okay, well, these are the facilitation tools I can use to get there. And then the other thing I'm really good at is creating community around me. And I thrive in community. And, oh, let's do Girl Gun Weekend because I need to go back and train again, basically, right? So I'm also using my strength of that to put another one on my schedule to do another training class. So I think all of that is part of establishing your growth mindset. And that is wanting to grow as a person and wanting to grow those around you and understanding how your weaknesses can be improved upon and how your strengths can be used to make your weaknesses less problematic. So, why train to improve weaknesses? I think when we go into that, you need to be asking yourself, and this goes back to what we always talk about here with my 3 things, like what is your life strategic plan? What is your vision? What is your purpose? Where are you going? What is your potential? And is that weakness in the way of you getting past your potential? What will improve in your life if you improve somewhere where you're weak? And then once you've answered those questions, you ask, what am I not doing to fix this issue, right? And it's that last one that's important. So I would train to improve a weakness that's having a negative impact on my life, especially if it's something that I should be in control of, like self-defense, because outsourcing self-defense is not in my budget. I could hire a bodyguard, I guess, but then what happens if the bodyguard goes down? Like, okay. And that's a lot of money. And it was a whole lot less money to spend $600 on a tactical response class fighting pistol, for the person who asked that question, to get me started on a better journey. And, you know what, guys, self-defense is not just guns. There's a lot more that goes into it. That is just one aspect of me training. Another aspect is becoming more physically fit. And at some point, I'll go back into the fighting part of self-defense, which I have not done in 25 years. So, I mean, I know how to hit somebody, but I never do because I'm just all, hi, bam! I'm just going to punch you in the nose. Like, I'm not that person. And I don't look for a fight. So, so I'm going to need to address it in multiple ways. That was just my first step. And then I think the other thing about sort of why you train is if the thing that happens if you don't train is super negative, or if you don't like improve the weakness, whatever that is, then it's a no-brainer. You just go for it. And remember, guys, you to run, you first have to walk. You know, a baby crawls and then they get enough strength to walk. And then next thing you know, there's a 2-year-old who can run faster than you, who you're chasing around all the time, right? But they have to go through that progression. Likewise, when you're addressing a weakness, it's going to be a stepwise thing. And you're going to go through some frustrating times of not being very good at this thing. And that's not a terrible thing. It's just when you embrace that that's part of the process and stop worrying about looking stupid, you progress so much faster. Now, sometimes it's a good idea to outsource your weaknesses. And the benefits of outsourcing your weakness is that you know it's a weakness. Bookkeeping. You know how to do it. You hate doing it. Your natural talents lie in facilitation and building community and teaching, none of which is bookkeeping. And you can leverage those things to pay somebody to do the thing that you're not great at. That kind of falls under the category of it's not hurting me not to do my own bookkeeping. I did need to learn enough to understand what I'm looking at so I can see if somebody's using my hate of paperwork to take advantage of me. So I spent time learning about bookkeeping. And I'm totally happy to pay for it. And that frees me up to focus on those things that I'm good at, to be able to pay the bookkeeper to keep that going. And it's a symbiotic relationship. I think that just means I'm leveraging my strengths to go further. And I'm more able to be more there for my loved ones because I'm not staring at the computer like throwing my pen at it because I'm so pissed because I'm bookkeeping. And, you know, likewise, I've got a drywall project in my kitchen right now that I could do, and it'll take me weeks to do it. And I have already started by paying somebody else to start it. And I might do parts of it, but I don't love doing drywall. I don't intend to be a drywaller. I don't have 9 drywall projects in front of me, and I can actually leverage these other skills that I have to make money to pay somebody to help me with drywall. So you see where that is. Like there's an art to outsourcing. And what you need to do is learn enough about the thing to identify quality, assess those who you're going to outsource to see if they have the skills you want to do the things. And then you got to leverage your strengths to make the money to pay them. Because when you're outsourcing to people, at some point, you got to pay them. And I think therein is how you find the balance. So once you've assessed your strengths and weaknesses, you figured out which weaknesses are actually standing in your way and you need to train to those. You can find a balance between that and leveraging your strengths to outsource pieces of things. And that takes self-reflection and introspection. And one of the things I'm really liking about the fact that my morning, so I used to go on a walk with my dogs, it was about 20 minutes. Extending that to 45 minutes every day has been really good for self-reflection and introspection, because there's like the part of the walk where I'm worried about the dogs going crazy because they're a coyote that they go crazy about. And there's a point of the walk where I'm like, what am I going to think about today? And there's a point of the walk where I'm like, do, 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 that song stuck in my head. And then there's a point in the walk where I'm like, oh, that's a really cool little Queen Anne's lace flower. And I pet it every day now when I go by it. And then there's a part of the walk where I'm like, Sauce, your to-do list is really long today. Sauce, what are you going to do about it? You know you're not getting your whole to-do list done. Sauce, you got to make some decisions while you're on this walk about what you're actually going to do, and then do those. And they need to be the most important thing on your list for the day. Sauce, when you get back, you're going to do these 3 things. And then I get back, and sometimes, though, that conversation goes more like, Sauce, we got to get real here. The way you behaved in that situation the other day was unacceptable. And now you got to go back, Sauce, and you got to apologize to that person. All of that's important. And there's the other conversation. Sauce, what if you were on this walk, somebody attacked you? What would you do? Well, Sauce, are you ready to defend are you caring? Are you ready to defend yourself? What are you going to do? Who are you going to call if you have to do it? Are you going to sick the dogs on them? Like, what are you going to do? Got to keep those dogs close. That's what happens when you have time to do introspection and you have time to think about your passion and how it can be more. You have time to assess your skill set. You have time to link it to your goals in life. And then you reevaluate on a schedule. So really, I think personal growth is an ever-changing process, and it does take some balance between training to improve your weaknesses and outsourcing them when that's a better fit for you. Because if you try to address all your weaknesses at once, you end up in analysis paralysis, and you end up sort of like that person I talked about. I just did the smart homesteading workshop, and I talked about 2 ways to organize your homestead. One is with a big picture in mind, and the other way is with no particular plan, and you just run after every opportunity, and you go right and you go left, you go right and you go left, you go right, you go left, and you never go up to your goal. Wherein the person who kind of knows where that is may go a little bit right and up and a little bit left and up and a little, and they eventually get there, or they get somewhere that's good. And I think that's the same way in training to your weaknesses is do a few at a time and choose the ones that make the most sense for you. Because when you choose to grow, you sometimes have to go the hard way. And it reminds me of something a friend of mine, Kevin Kerr, said. He said, do hard things now so you don't have to do harder things later. And he would give his students all a sticker that said, do hard things. And it was just a reminder, if you don't go to the gym now, 20 years from now, things might be a lot harder. 75 hard has been really eye-opening for me in that too, because like my flexibility in my hips compared to 10 years ago, not as flexible because I've been doing Pilates, so I'm aware now. But it's getting better. And I'm so glad that I have gotten back into Pilates at 50 and not at 70. Started trying to do that because now I'll have a foundation going into 70 because we're not stopping Pilates when 75 hard ends. Anyway, I plan to do a few more episodes on more of this growth mindset idea. If you guys like it, send me an email. Let me know like questions you have about that and how you've addressed some of your own limiting beliefs or things that are weaknesses that are getting in your way. I'd love to keep the conversation going. We'll continue to explore them and cultivate growth in the network. That's why we have the LFTN challenge every year, right? It used to be 30 days, just live off your pantry, or 30 days, do a keto diet or any diet. Or now it's like 75 days, fix something. Tell me what you're fixing. I want to hear what's going. Also, if you're interested, if you're just hearing this podcast for the first time and you're interested in our network, we have a pretty good presence on Telegram, t.me/LFTN group. That's Living Free in Tennessee. LFTN group. The MeWe group is mewe.com/join/LFTN. And we do have a Facebook group. It's the Living Free in Tennessee Coffee Break group. You can follow us there as well. They are not as active. And I am trying to get the people in freesteading.com to kind of be more active. But I've got all the links to all our social networks in the show notes. Come on in, get to know us. If you come to the Telegram group, we screen you. And then we let you in. And then we're hoping you'll tell us who you are because we get a lot of like spam bots there. So if people are like, hey, are you a real person? They don't mean to be mean. They're just like making sure you're a real person. That's it. Anyway, we're going to go into questions before we wrap the show. And the first one is, do you have an LLC or another type of business? Justin, I have an S corporation, and I made that decision based on my financial overview and by meeting with professional people who helped me make that decision. You're asking, Justin also wants to know if I'm adding a room to my house or repurposing. I plan to add on to the house. It's a 1,200 square foot home, which is plenty big for me, but not for two people with two work at home jobs to do so well. So that is also just a decision I've made. And if I never get the finances for it, it won't happen, but I'm hoping it'll happen. So it's my big picture plan. It's part of the plan. Zippor88 says, do you carry pepper spray? I do not currently carry pepper spray. I'm not prepared to carry pepper spray. I can see the benefit of it, but I just don't do it at this time. I've always been more worried about it blowing back on me if I use it wrong, but I could see it being helpful in a situation. Anyway, if you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in two ways. One, get your coffee at hollerroast.com. Two, consider becoming a member. Membership information is at livingfreeintennessee.com. We do have a 7 webinar series coming up on, as it's a homestead starter pack, starting with how to grow vegetables in your garden successfully the first year. Mike Leonito is going to teach that one. And it's next Wednesday, June 14th at, I think it starts at 5 p.m. Central. Anyway, to get that, you either have to buy it or sign up to be a member, which costs money to buy it. And it's going to be a really fun segment because we start with how to grow garden vegetables, and then we go into preserving foods, we go into livestock management, we go into sort of function stacking systems so that you can tap into your waste streams from your farm and then not have to throw that stuff away, and it turns into abundance on your farm. So lots of really cool topics in that series. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week.